All right. I wanted to continue to develop this startup that we started to build in Summit through this learning series. And it's a SaaS company, mostly right now with, only with inbound traffic in terms of customer acquisition. And on the revenue side, a handful of different plans. We showed how to build like a consulting option in terms of one-off costs or one-off revenue sources, as well as subscriptions. We've talked about retention and other things like cohorts, but today I wanted to focus on adding acquisition channels that are based on marketing spend. So the way we do this in Summit is you go to acquisition on the left-hand side, and remember, events are your building blocks. So we're building a financial model using events. And under the event editor, there's this drop down, customer acquisition channels. I'm going to change it to adding a budget driven channel because we're talking about marketing spend. I'm going to hide this little bit of extra. And I'm going to say that we have one marketing channel or paid acquisition channel, which is AdWords. And we're going to say that the customer acquisition cost for a paying customer, the ARPU of this business is $103. So just for fun, let's assume that maybe this is $1,000 customer acquisition cost through AdWords to get somebody to click, to sign up for a free trial, and then to ultimately convert into a customer. So remember, this is not cost of a click. This is also not cost of getting a free trial. This is the cost end to end of money into Google AdWords, turning into a subscribing customer at $103 a month on average. So we'll say 1,000, which means our payback period is 10 months, roughly. And we're going to flow these to this ARPU plan. And we're going to set that as 100% of everyone that comes through AdWords that does become a paying customer signs up for this average plan. Now, obviously, we talked about before in Summit, a lot of the power here is that you can add other revenue events if you want to and flow those to those. But I'm just trying to do a simple example of the budget-driven channel. And then you can always make it more complex to fit your needs. So here's one. We'll save this. And I'm going to create another, which is going to be, let's go ahead and assume this is B2B SaaS. And I will add a LinkedIn and spend. And let's say that it's a little more expensive. I don't know why, just for fun, but we've got in this case a 12-month payback. And we'll also flow that to our average revenue plan. And we'll say 100% go to this, and we'll save this as well. All right. So now I want to go to create a marketing budget. Okay. So this is going to allow us to flow. Oh, looks like let me bring this back up here. Perhaps I didn't save. Actually, let me go back and create that LinkedIn channel. I think I might not hit save. Then ads, 1250. Sorry. Sometimes I finish filling out the form and I forget to hit save. Maybe I did and I just have two now. Nope, there it is. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to add this marketing budget. And what's cool is we can call this, you could call this social media spend, but this is the early days of this company. They really only have one kind of marketing, which is this paid acquisition through these social media outlets. I'm going to say marketing spend, and we're going to define it as just sort of experimental phase, 15% of our revenue. And we're going to flow that budget to, so 15% of our recognized revenue each month will go to Google AdWords. We'll flow half of it there, and we'll flow the other half, 100 to LinkedIn. Save. Okay. And so now we've got a, refresh this. Looks like we might have a little bit of state here. Okay, actually we do have the LinkedIn ad spend. I guess I did hit save. Let me delete this. Sometimes latency bites us all. Okay, so with Google, LinkedIn, marketing spend, and you still have the inbound organic traffic. Okay, so I'm going to now show you. We're going to hit build, and we're going to be spending 15% of our revenue on acquiring customers, and you'll see how that flows into this marketing CAC row of the spreadsheet that gets generated. So the thing to know is this is total spend on customer acquisition, not the average customer acquisition and so forth. So in this case, it's 15% of this gross revenue up here is being spent on this. And actually, this is going to be 15% of your subscription revenue in this case. which is why we are at $1,000. So we had $14,275. 15% of that was $1,000 spent the next month. 25,000 we spent 1,900 the next month. So it's 15% of your subscription revenue. So if you have other kinds of revenue, so in this case we had project revenue. Project revenue is not going to be used for that marketing budget. So just be aware, at least the way the system is designed today. So out of the subscription revenue, what it's doing is it's taking 15% at the end of the month, saying, hey, we made $6,536 last month. Let's set aside $509 to spend on those channels this month, and it's splitting them 50-50 into LinkedIn and Facebook. And then what happens is that $500 isn't actually enough to buy a customer. So we actually might need to amp it up, because remember, we're talking about spending $1,000 per customer. So we don't end up buying customers until we reach a certain critical mass of spend. But once we're spending $1,000, $2,000 a month, then we're starting to add customers based on this marketing spend. Now, another thing we can do, and I wanted to show you this, is we can do what's called muting an event. And so I can come in here and look at this marketing spend, and I can say, for this, actually, let me make sure this is attached. Okay. For these events, we can actually experiment with toggling them on and off. So for these, I'm going to go ahead and click. It's this button down here that looks like a speaker, and it's just to represent mute. It means disabling the event. So I can click that. And as you can see, this says muted now. And what that means is I've effectively turned off marketing spend, and I can rebuild this, and I can see what it's like just to have that organic inbound traffic instead, or that revenue from inbound only. And you can turn back on that marketing spend just by unmuting it, right? And then you can rebuild it, and you can see, what's the difference. Now, we're just with very little revenue, and we're only spending 15% of it. So frankly, it's not making much of a difference. Very little difference. So what I'd like to do is a couple things. First of all, let's temporarily mute the revenue sources that are consulting based or project based, because those are not actually driving spend on marketing. I think it's cluttering up the revenue view here a little bit. So we're going to mute these project and non-subscription revenues. Okay. And then what I'm also going to do is I'm going to come under acquisition, and I'm going to go into the marketing spend. And rather than spend 15% of budget, it's the early days. Let's go ahead and crank that up to 50%, because otherwise we're just not going to get a lot of results, especially at these costs, right? So let's save this, and then we will hit build again. And now we will end up with a view here. Now let me double check. Yeah, marketing spend is on. So if I view this, you can see how we are at, in June of next year with this marketing spend, we're at $40,638 of recurring revenue. We got rid of that project-based revenue here, so that's why this is off. And why this is less than it was before. So we're at $40,638. Let's go back to the marketing spend and turn it off. And we can rebuild this. We can see what part of this was adding up. So, okay, and this is kind of fun, because you can see how it's actually made very little difference. Okay, even turning off the marketing spend, we're actually earning about the same, and I bet you it's because these costs of acquisition are so high. We're not spending enough money to really move the needle when we have such expensive customer acquisition. So what we want to do is maybe amp this up to 100%. So really spending as much as we possibly can on marketing. I'm going to update this, and then I'm going to unmute it and see what the difference is again. And this is sort of the benefit of Summit, is you can just quickly test different options. So we're looking at, let's see, June of next year, we're at 59,000. So by spending 100% of our revenue on marketing at these costs, we're at 59,000. Okay. I'm going to lower this again just for illustration purposes. Let's lower that back to 50%. Okay. And update. Go back and look at June again. So I'm going to click build. So we're at 59,000 with 100% of our, we were at 59,000 a month in June of next year if we spend on marketing 100% of what we're bringing in terms of revenue. If we decrease that to 50%, we're at 44,000. So it's a $15,000 difference. So that extra 50% marketing spend buys us $15,000 in MRR June of next year. And what you can also do with this mute feature. So first of all, just to pause there, what you're getting at there is a sensitivity analysis, basically saying with these kinds of costs, how much you need to spend to really move the needle, where it turns out it's a substantial amount compared to what it would be if those costs were lower, right? And that makes sense. Now, but it can be hard in a model a lot of times to see, well, how much we really need to spend for it to be a meaningful amount. So in order to go from 44 to 59, we had to double our marketing spend. And if I go back, what I want to show you is we will leave this at 50%. Okay. What I can also do is I can use that mute feature to look at inbound traffic. I can actually mute it instead. And what this allows us to do is by muting the organic leads, when I rebuild this model, I'm only going to see paid acquisition, right? So here's paid only. So paid is 25,480, right? Of the total. If I unmute the organic or the inbound and rebuild this, here's the total at 50%. It's that 46,000, okay? And if I increase that marketing spend again, back up to 100%, we are at, was it 60 something thousand in June? 59, something like that. Yep, 66,000. Okay. So just by muting things and changing the spend, the amount of our, the percentage of our revenue that we're spending on marketing, we can see, all these different results and the different levels of results based on those investments. And what you can do is, of course, the key is when you're spending on paid, how much cash do you have to spend on paid? So here we had, $42,000 to start. Unfortunately, this business is profitable because we really haven't added a lot of costs in terms of salaries yet. So we didn't end up going into the hole in terms of our cash balance. But again, the more of it you spend and the more of your subscriptions, that receivables, there's all kinds of variables to play with to figure out if we're getting ahead of ourselves in terms of spend on marketing. And Summit can help with that just by having these marketing spend or marketing budget event types, budget-driven channel event types, and then these controls to selectively mute and test different levels of investment and cost of acquisition. So hope this was helpful. This is an example of starting to test those waters of whether or not this kind of marketing will be viable for you in a long-term sense as a strategy. What I'd like to show in the next video is how we can run actual individual advertising campaigns through Summit, which is really maybe more in that testing phase of just seeing, dipping our toes in the water and seeing what paid acquisition is like. So I hope this was helpful. Thanks for watching, and I'll get a new video out shortly. Bye.